I lose stuff all the time. That's why I've been using trackers on Google's Find My Device network for almost a year now, and you should too. Most of these trackers I've bought with my own money, like this one from Chipolo, or this card tracker that I have from Pebblebee that's taped to my motorcycle registration. And there's some really exciting new products that came on the market after I entered the ecosystem, and they're really kind of shaking up the game. Now, this all started about a year ago when Google opened up the Find My Device network to third-party manufacturers and just to the world, kind of the same way Apple did with AirTags. And since then, I've had a chance to test two of the biggest names in this space, Chipolo and Pebblebee. And today we have a new player that's coming to the table with some really cool features, Meely. They saw my previous video and they were confident enough in their product to sponsor a comparison. And after using their trackers for a couple of weeks, I can honestly get why they entered the space, and I really like the products they're bringing to the table. In today's video, we're gonna dive into the world of these trackers, a little bit of history, how to set them up, and most importantly, how this new tracker from Meely, the Mi Tag Duo, stacks up against the competition in regards to features and value. But before we jump into any kind of comparison or tutorial about how to set these up, let's discuss how these trackers work. When you unlock your phone, it's going to ping nearby trackers, and depending upon how many people are nearby you, it's going to share that information with the location of your device and attach that to the location of the tracker. This is how they work for both Apple, Google, Chipolo, Tile, Pebblebee, and even Samsung's own proprietary Galaxy network. And hey, if this video is helping you find your way through a sea of trackers out there, a sub would be greatly appreciated. We're on the road to 30K subs and every single one helps. Now, before Google opened up their Find My Device network, Samsung was already leading the way, leveraging their dominance in North America. And I personally got to test one of the Samsung Galaxy trackers about 2 years ago when I traveled from Vietnam to the United States with my Galaxy Smart Tag, and it worked well, thanks to the ultra wideband Bluetooth for directional accuracy, something that Google's network doesn't exactly support yet. But there's a catch. When I was using Samsung's network, I noticed that it was pretty small, and it really only works with Samsung devices, and this is really going to depend a lot on where you're located. See, when my bags were transiting in Japan, for example, a market dominated by iPhones, I only got 1 or 2 pings on my Samsung trackers, which wasn't very good. Now, about a year and a half ago, Google started to roll out their global Find My Device network, and the goal was better international coverage. Now, unfortunately, due to some default settings on millions of Android devices, the Google Find My Device network hasn't performed as well as Apple's has in every region. That's why I'm really excited to introduce a new player that's coming to the market, Meely. Now, Meely is bringing something new to the table with their Meely Mi Tag Duo. See, in the past, regardless of whether or not you were getting a Chipolo, a Pebblebee, or either of those devices, you had to pick whether or not you wanted a tracker on Google's Find My Device network or Apple's. But now, with this Mi Tag Duo, Meely is giving you a tracker that can work with either or network, which means that these are just a great item, and they also make like a great gift. Stocking stuffers for Christmas, Mi Tag Duo. Mother's Day gift for someone upgrading their phone possibly in the near future, Mi Tag Duo. Office white elephant exchange, Mi Tag Duo. It doesn't matter whether or not they're on Apple's network, Google's network, or if they're even using a Samsung Galaxy tracker. All tracking networks, whether they be Android or iOS, are going to be compatible with the Mi Tag Duo. Now, setup for these is super simple, whether or not you're on iOS or on Android. All you have to do is just press the center button near your phone and you'll be prompted to pair it. There's no app to download, there's no codes, there's no hassle. You simply press the button with your device when you get them in the mail and they will begin pairing, and you only need to be using either Apple's Find My Device network or the Find My Device network that's built in and comes with Android. Now, I tested the Meely Mi Tag Duo in a couple of different ways. The first thing that I did was that I put it on my motorcycle next to my Pebblebee tracker that I've been using now for months. And I wanted to see if there was going to be any difference in performance between this Pebblebee tracker or the Mealy Tag Duo that I just got. And even for a good measure, I threw in a tag from Chipolo just to see if I would get any difference in range, or if there was going to be any difference in performance and how often they would ping devices. So I gave my wife the Mealy, the Pebblebee, and the Chipolo trackers to see if I was going to notice any difference with this little experiment. And I had her stop at a gas station outside to see if I was going to get any updates. You know, gas stations, pretty busy places. I got no updates. I had her stop at a couple on the side of the street at a couple of places to see if it was going to update, and again, nothing. She went into a Circle K, which is a pretty small convenience store here in Vietnam. They're everywhere. And going into the Circle K, I did get an update on the location of all 3 trackers at the same exact time, and I was notified of them. So it's really nice to see that the Mealy Tag is just kind of following suit with the performance that you can expect from any of these brands. On top of that, Mealy is bringing some really cool features to the table in regards to being able to use them with both iOS and Android. Now again, performance was right in line with other trackers, which for my opinion, a budget-friendly tracker like this Mealy is awesome. The fact that it's not a premium product or priced higher than the competition, it means that you're just getting great performance that's consistent and reliable without having to worry about spending a premium on it. And I think that these are awesome. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how kind of Mealy stacks up with other trackers on the market for kind of features and ecosystem. The first one that we got to start off with is Tile, because Tile is kind of the OG of smart trackers. They have over 20 million users, but a lot of their useful features like 30-day location history, smart alerts when your device leaves you, and kind of unlimited sharing of the location of a device, they're locked behind a $3 a month subscription. Now, you do get some perks like item replacement up to $100 for the most basic Tile plan. But if you want to spend $100 a year on Tile, you do get a $1,000 kind of insurance policy if something is lost and stolen. Tile seems like it's totally fine. The problem is that it's useless kind of outside of North America or even Europe or places that might have a lot of Tile users, simply because it only works with Tile's network. To me, that's kind of a deal breaker. Now, next up is the Samsung Galaxy trackers. The Samsung Galaxy trackers, in my experience, were pretty awesome. They have ultra wideband, which helps locating your devices and kind of gives you a directional compass about where it is. The only problem is that it's really only compatible with Samsung devices. And as I mentioned, if you're outside of a heavy Samsung region, you're kind of out of luck. Great example of this. Let's say you wanted to pick up any of these trackers to track your luggage when traveling, and you have a trip to Asia. Let's say you're going to go to Japan and Korea. In Japan, the market is almost purely dominated by iPhones. That means you're not going to get very good coverage with a Samsung-specific tracker. But if you go to Korea, a market that is heavily dependent on Samsung, you're going to get great performance. So as a international traveler or someone that lives abroad, as someone that wants these trackers to be used in a variety of different ways, the Samsung Galaxy tracker is kind of a no-go for me. Now, next up, Chipolo. Chipolo was a pretty early adopter of this technology, and they've offered trackers for both Google and Apple's network. Only problem is that when you look into kind of the Chipolo ecosystem of trackers, things like the Chipolo card that you would use to track your wallet has a non-user replaceable, non-rechargeable battery, and you're expected to just send your Chipolo card tracker back to Chipolo when it's dead, and they'll give you a discount on a new tracker. That kind of makes the Chipolo card tracker e-waste, and in my opinion, it's kind of a reason not to even jump into the Chipolo ecosystem. Now, next up, we gotta talk about Pebblebee. I've been using a Pebblebee tracker for my wallet, and I like that they feature rechargeable batteries across the market. It does make them a little bit bulkier than the competition because it needs space for a USB-C port and a rechargeable battery. One thing that I don't like about Pebblebee's ecosystem is that when you are using the Pebblebee card, like this one that I have right here, you have a proprietary tracker, or I'm sorry, a proprietary cable. And when you lose that cable, which you inevitably will do if you're doing much in the way of traveling, a new cable is $8, which is almost a third of the cost of the tracker itself. That kind of makes me hesitant to kind of jump into the world of Pebblebee trackers. And to be honest, I keep the cable for this in a safe place, and I make sure to recharge this every 4 or 5 months. That makes me a little bit hesitant about adopting more of these Pebblebee card trackers and suggesting them to their friends. Mealy, on the other hand, with the MeTag Duo and their entire ecosystem of trackers, they're offering something a little bit different. Now, not only does Mealy have their MeTag Duo, which is compatible with both iOS and Android devices, but Mealy's version of like a tracker card that you would use for your wallet features a Qi wireless charging pad inside of the tracker, so you never have to worry about a proprietary charging cable when traveling, which is really, really impressive, especially because I could just place a Mealy card tracker on the back of my phone and use reverse wireless charging to charge up that card. I think it kind of makes the Mealy tracker a no-brainer if you're using their ecosystem for international travel, because you don't have to bring a proprietary cable to charge it. And if you're out somewhere and you don't have a USB-C cable because maybe you're still in the Apple ecosystem, you can go ahead and just change the battery internally in the MeTag Duo with a CR302032 battery, which I think is really, really nice and versatile. And I like the fact that I don't have to worry about a battery wearing out over time and replacing it. And as much as I would love to see something similar like that in a card form factor, I understand that the card form factor has different space limitations. So I kind of give them a pass for that, because it kind of makes up for it with having Qi wireless charging enabled. So with all that out of the way, I think that Mealy is bringing a really solid product to the market right now. I think that they have a really cool ecosystem because they have a ton of different like bike mounts and handlebar bell mounts, and they've got waterproof mounts that allow you to remove the mount, change the battery if needed, while still maintaining that mount on, let's say, a card or something like that, a car or something like that. And I really like some of the mounting options they have for bicycles and stuff. I think it's a really, really cool option, and I think it's really, really innovative in a space like this that doesn't really have much innovation that often. And I think that Mealy is really bringing a lot to the table with these new trackers. And if you've found this review useful or helpful, a subscribe would be greatly appreciated. And I will have links to where you can pick up the Mealy trackers in the description and a pinned comment down below. And until next time, it's been Mitchell. Peace.